Welcome to Please Leave Podcast, where you'll hear truly scary stories that you cannot get out of your head. These stories may contain graphic depictions of violence or explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
I pressed the button to fire up the ring light and gave myself a quick last look before starting the live stream. Hey guys, it's Bethy. I hope you've all been staying saucy out there. I'm gonna give everyone a second to join before I start today's unboxing. Oh hey, Funny Bunny 4, Lily's mom for life. It's so good to see you. The tiny hearts immediately start to flow out of the lower corner of the screen. Gifts from my most loyal followers who would do anything to hear their names in my mouth. Please excuse how I look, guys. I just got home from my workout, so haven't had time to get fixed up for you. I hope you'll forgive me. I lied and pretended to smooth down the hair I'd intentionally tousled to seem more likable and authentic to my audience. Okay, I think it's time, I announced once the viewer count reached 500 and continued to climb. I took y'all's suggestions and ordered from White Cloud. I held up the medium-sized box, which inspired another rush of hearts from my devoted fans. I really hope you guys didn't lead me astray here, I said with exaggerated suspicion as I ripped the box open and then honed in on a comment in the live feed. I look good in everything? You're so sweet, Betsy, too. But, you know, I've got these pesky childbearing hips to contend with, so we'll see. I'd built my platform off of people who wanted to watch me unbox the cheap crap I bought every week, and pinched myself every day in total disbelief that this was my real life, that I just bought stuff and showed other people, and pulled off a six-figure salary as a result. And I barely had to buy anything anymore because there were so many brands excited to send me their products to try. But I'd spent my own money on the box of clothes from a fast fashion manufacturer overseas after so many fans had requested it. White Cloud copied the designs of luxury brands and was able to sell them at a laughably low price, thanks to inhumane labor practices and using materials that were so low quality they bordered on being toxic. But I plan to keep those details to myself. The internet couldn't get enough White Cloud, and I was in the business of giving my audience what it wanted. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I squealed as I ripped open the plastic of the first garment, which was a dark blue silky shirt. This is so high quality, I lied and rubbed the flimsy fabric between my fingers. I squealed again and opened the shirt fully, then revealed it to the camera, which incited the biggest flurry of hearts and comments so far. Can you guys believe this? I asked, wide-eyed in feigned disbelief, as I stroked the textile and looked back and forth between the camera and the shirt. I mean, this is basically Givenchy Spring Ready to Wear 2023. It's such a good dupe. Need, Jane Did What 2025 commented, and I returned a high-pitched, I know, right? Okay, now I'm excited. You guys were right. I can't believe I second-guessed you even for a second. I shot the camera a loving look and pulled out the next piece, which I was pretty sure was the bright green maxi dress I'd ordered. The comments spiked suddenly, which caught my attention, so I paused the unpacking to read the screen. I dropped something? I asked, confused, and looked around at my lap and the surrounding floor. I looked back to the screen for more clarification. Oh, a piece of paper? I stood up, and sure enough, a small sheet of folded paper, no longer than an inch, fluttered down from my lap and landed gently on the floor. Ooh, a secret message! I tucked the dress under my left arm and reached down to retrieve the paper with my right. Oh my God, you guys, what do you think it says? I paused to allow the responses to appear, and they were all speculating that I might have a secret admirer. Yeah, right, you guys. You know that I am seriously single right now. I lied again, forever concealing the fact that I'd been in a committed relationship for 4 years because it would detract from the single lady girl boss image that I'd cultivated, and my followers related to the most. My boyfriend Ethan worked in finance and could have cared less about my online life, considering he was at the office for 16 hours most days and was determined to retire by the age of 45. Okay, here we go, I teased and slowly pulled the two halves of the strip of paper apart. I felt my brows furrow involuntarily as I read what was written inside in a font so small I could barely read it. "What's it say? What's it say?" my followers chanted, and I knew I couldn't read what was actually written on the paper. So I thought fast and said, "Inspected by number 675. I shrugged and pulled my trademark smile back on my face. "Sorry, guys. No secret admirers for me today." "You're going to die in this suit," was what the tiny writing actually said. Someone had scrawled the ominous message halfway across the world and then packed it in with my purchases like it was a thank you note or a gift receipt. I tried to conceal a few deep breaths to calm my nerves as the comments piled up at record speed at the bottom of my screen. They were a chorus of reassurances that I'd find someone someday, and I affectionately responded to a handful of them before redirecting their attention to the unveiling of the dress. I realized that my hand was shaking a tiny bit as I pulled it from its plastic wrapping and held it up for display. I turned my wrists so that my hands were less visible and exclaimed that it would be perfect for brunch with Bella at our favorite spot. Bella was my twin sister, and my followers went nuts when I posted anything with the both of us in it. She was more of a free spirit and spent a good deal of her time off on some adventure or another, so my time with her was more limited these days. She knew how much my platform meant to me, though, and so was always a good sport about taking some photos and videos with me when she was home. Ugh! I could really go for a mimosa right now, I winked at the screen. And then there was a burst of people posting, "Bella!" after I mentioned my sister. I know, you guys, I miss her too. I promise, more Bella content coming real soon. I reached for one of the garments remaining in the package to keep everyone engaged. 2 more pieces of folded paper wafted from the inside of the folds of the jumpsuit that I revealed next. And I immediately joked that Inspector number 675 had been really busy on the day they packed my order, while I took a peek inside one of them. "We hate when you smile," the note said, in a vicious, scrawled handwriting. I reflexively threw the note as a little blast of fear erupted in my stomach. I knew I couldn't show my audience my fear, so I looked straight into the camera with artificial enthusiasm and announced, "Guys, this dress is too good. I just have to try it on for you." To which my followers went absolutely apeshit. "Here's a video of Pickle play fighting with a neighbor's baby to keep you company. I'll be back in a jiff." I glanced at the upper right of the screen before I switched on the video of my Yorkshire Terrier Pickle, who was almost a bigger star than I was, and realized with a jolt of excitement that my live stream attendance was almost at 100K people for the first time in my career. I had never broken 50K before, and the news lifted my spirits significantly. I took several massive deep breaths as I ripped off my sweatshirt and jeans and pulled the maxi dress over my head. The hyper-synthetic fabric made it almost totally wrinkle-proof, and so I only needed to adjust my boobs and fix my hair slightly before rejoining the feed. I took an extra moment to gaze at myself in the mirror and ensure that all signs of fear had drained from my face. Fuck the haters. My voice was filled with the manufactured confidence I'd trained into myself after working as a public figure for so long. 100,000 viewers, girl. 100,000. An involuntary smile lit up my face, and I pushed thoughts of the tiny, threatening notes out of my mind before switching my feed back on. I positioned myself so that my face was filling the screen when the live stream engaged, and teased my audience with a quick, "Are you ready for this, guys? You are going to die." I raised an eyebrow, and thousands of yeses clamored for my attention beneath my framed face. I stepped back dramatically to reveal the mediocre dress and muttered, "I mean, come on, you guys," before doing a slow twirl to display it 360 degrees. I struck a quick pose and threw up a peace sign, which is the trademark gesture of influencers everywhere, knowing full well that a handful of fans would screen cap it and tag me when they posted it on their main feed later. I returned to my phone, and the commenters had reached the manic point that I loved most as they spewed compliments as fast as the feed would let them. I noticed a few complaints that they couldn't get the dress for themselves because it had sold out, and that raised my spirits even more. Holy shit, I sold something out? I thought to myself, and glanced at the viewer tally, which was already pushing 200K. Oh my god, you guys! We're about to hit 200,000 viewers! I blew a rapid handful of kisses, and the audience blew them right back in the form of hearts and gifts. Wow, what a big night! I reached for the box again, excited to keep the stream going for as long as I could. The longer I held their attention, the more tips would flood in, not to mention the brand deals I'd be able to get with numbers that high. Drum roll, please, for our next piece. I waited several beats before bringing the next bag into view, and once the crowd was in sufficient frenzy, I cooed, "Ooh, I am really excited about this one." I could tell by the thick black fabric that it was the trendy, oversized blazer I'd ordered, and knew my admirers would go absolutely bananas for it. I grabbed the jacket by the shoulders and let the plastic fall away before presenting it to the camera. Just as I expected, the blazer reignited the already feverish chat, and I encouraged their excitement with a flirtatious tilt of my head. Can you imagine me wearing this to happy hour? Very model off-duty, am I right? I flipped the jacket around for a moment to show the back, then opened the right front to expose the lining. I was distracted for a few beats as I read the comments, and then gasped when I refocused on the image of the jacket on the screen, and noticed the note pinned to the inside pocket in full view of my audience. Oh, wow, these people are thorough with their inspection documentation, I joked, and snapped the jacket closed as quickly as I could. Like, we get it, guys. I laughed as normally as I could, but it came out stifled and uncomfortable. The trickiest thing about living a life online is that all eyes are on you at all times, and the internet doesn't miss a single thing. Before I even had time to set the jacket down, several people in the live stream had already deciphered what the message said, despite the small writing and the backward presentation through the camera lens. The viewers were beside themselves with confusion and concern. The words, "You can't smile when you're dead, Beth," stacked up endlessly in the horizontal space that spanned the bottom of the screen, as more and more people translated the message in the jacket. "You guys, it's okay," I reassured in an effort to get the night back on track. I started to feel a little insane as the two sides of my mind pulled my thoughts towards opposite poles, and I felt the need to sacrifice my humanity for my manufactured online personality. The one half searched frantically for a clever way to downplay the terrifying words so that I could remain perfect and polished in the eyes of the world. The other half screamed at me that something was seriously wrong and that I needed to end the stream, call Ethan on his work trip, and pull him away from whatever networking event he was inevitably at so that he could help me calm down. Despite having hundreds of thousands of eyes on me, I was suddenly hyper-aware of how defenseless I was inside my massive, empty house. The darkness that pressed in on the walls surrounding me felt urgent and wicked, and it was becoming hard to breathe. I snapped out of my stupor after a few seconds and realized that my reflection in the live stream was that of a hunted animal. My face was slack, my eyes dark and vacant, and my shoulders looked slumped and frail. I attempted to straighten up and transform back into my sunny self like I'd done 1,000 times before, but the smile I forced onto my face looked wild and unhinged. My lips were too red against my blood-drained skin, and the terror in my eyes sent my expression completely off kilter. I looked to the chat section for some reassuring words to help me regain my confidence, but one comment cut through the pack and sent a fresh wave of panic racing through me. "We're watching you," it said in all caps. The bold letters seemed to extend toward me off the screen as I watched them disappear under the flow of the chat. I muttered, "Guys, that's not funny." I didn't recognize the soft croak that came out in place of my voice. And just as soon as the first message was gone, a new and even more menacing one appeared. 1642 Willow Court. The line simply said, and it was all I could do not to smash my phone with my fist. The commenter immediately sent through a link to the chat, and without thinking I clicked on it, more afraid to not know where it led than to face whatever came next. My search bar hummed for a moment as it connected, and a half a second later, an image of my house at night filled the screen. There was no way to know when the photo had been taken, but a security fence spanned the perimeter of our huge yard, and so there was no way to get a clear shot of the house without being on the other side. What the heck? That's not cool, you guys! I tried to think of something sufficiently intimidating to follow up with, but my voice trailed off and the commenter sent through a series of additional links. I opened another, and it was a candid shot of a lunch I'd attended with a couple of my closest friends a few months back. I looked so comfortable and happy with my head thrown back in the middle of a genuine laugh, and I couldn't remember who had given me so much joy that day. But it suddenly felt so precious and so far away. I shook myself from the memory, then clicked out of the link with disgust before returning to the feed. Okay, seriously, everyone, this is not cool. I think it's time to end the live stream for the day. It's been fun, but someone is taking things too far, so I'm gonna have to sign off now. End the stream and die. The evil words appeared before I could even finish my sentence. My breath caught in my throat, and I couldn't force myself to close the app as desperately as I wanted to. I continued to hold my breath, and my house was so quiet. I could almost hear my heart slamming harder and harder against my chest as it tried to escape the fear that ballooned behind it. I stayed that way for several seconds, until I heard the unmistakable sound of breaking glass below me, followed by several loud creaks and soft footsteps as the back door slowly opened and someone stepped inside. "Someone's here," I whispered, and stared into my live stream with wide, terrified eyes that searched desperately for answers in the words that continued to appear at an almost incomprehensible speed. I could hear Pickle barking frantically from the inside of the crate I kept her in while I recorded my videos. Her barks reached a feverish level as the person approached her in the corner of the kitchen. Seconds later, I heard what sounded like a whimper. Then her barks cut off abruptly, sending a ripple of danger upstairs and into my bones. "Pickle?" I whispered again. My first instinct was to run and help her, but I could hear the footsteps again, louder now. So I snatched my phone from its stand and scanned the room for a place to hide. I ran as quickly as I could across the thick carpet of the guest room that I used as my recording studio, and into the large, dark closet that was full of remnants of my various hauls. I tucked myself into the furthest corner of the pitch-black space and put my phone up to my face. The number of viewers had soared to over 1 million, and my eyes filled with the terrified words of my beloved fans. "Oh my God, is she going to die?" Friends Forever 2236 screamed into our shared virtual space. "Get out of there! Run!" Hundreds of others echoed in almost perfect unison. "Holy shit, do we get to watch Bethy get murdered?" Guns, girls, gas, and grass posted with an enthusiasm that made the bile rise in the back of my throat. "Guys, please help me," I whispered over the unmistakable sound of someone rifling around downstairs. I heard a loud slamming sound, followed by a low, frustrated murmur. "Come on," and I whispered as quickly as I could. "Call 911. My address is 1642 Willow Court, Palo Alto. Oh God, I don't want to die." My tears fell freely as the footsteps proceeded to my staircase and started to ascend. I watched in horror as the mass of concerned comments were swept away in an awful tide, and an onslaught of new voices washed over the chat feed. The shift started as a refrain of just a comment or two, sprinkled in between calls for someone to help me, but it didn't take long for the avalanche to occur. Within a matter of seconds, my supporters were buried under a constant stream of a single, blood-curdling sentence. The words, "We found you," appeared over and over and over as I shivered, so pathetic and defenseless in my weak excuse for a hiding place. By the time the footsteps were upstairs and heading down the hall in my direction, the chat was one long ticker tape of terror. They had found me. They were here, and they were going to fulfill their horrendous promise to end me. They would take my life and snuff out my smile that they hated with a ruinous passion. Within minutes, I would be dead inside the suit that they had sent from across the sea. In the absence of the encouragement from my loving supporters, it became suddenly and brutally clear that I was on my own, and I would need to fight. And so I thought hard about anything that might be hidden in the closet that I could use to defend myself. And the answer came to me in an intoxicating flash of hope. It had been a few months, maybe even a year, but a female-owned startup had sent me a self-defense gadget that was this 2-inch knife disguised to look like designer lipstick. The idea was that a woman could carry the secret knife in her pocket or purse until a threat presented itself. But I thought it was a little too dark to feature on my site, so I'd stashed it in a duffel bag full of other influencer gifts I'd received and decided not to advertise over the years. Luckily, the bag had become too heavy to lift from the various products and clothing I deemed too political, sexual, or upsetting, and so it was just a couple of feet away from where I sat on my closet floor. Without a sound, I scooted until my foot hit the bag, and then I unzipped it as quickly and quietly as I could. I reached into the interior pocket that I'd stashed the knife in, and within seconds, I was holding the cold cylinder in my sweaty palm. The hard metal of the handle calmed me a bit, and I removed the cap to reveal the blade inside. I tested the tip with a tentative finger, and was even more relieved to find that it was incredibly sharp, and so would make a sufficient weapon if I was able to get the upper hand and surprise whoever was headed my way. I propped the phone on a shelf so my followers would know that I was still in serious danger and could communicate with emergency services on my behalf. The words, "We found you, we found you, we found you," continued to taunt me in the chat feed, and it just strengthened my resolve to end the night alive and to take control of my life and my career. I could hear the intruder enter the guest room as I tucked myself into the space just to the right of the closet door. The door hinged in the other direction, so there was less of a chance that they would see me from that angle, and if I acted quickly enough, I could attack them before they could attack me. There was a loud thump and a muffled curse on the other side of the thin wall, and I couldn't help but imagine all of the things that could have made that sound, each more frightening than the last. My mind was filled with images of suitcases packed full of torture devices, yards of rope and plastic sheets, video equipment, and unconscious women tied up in prone positions. Was this some kind of sex trafficking operation, I wondered? Or worse, I had to force these thoughts from my mind so I could focus on steadying my trembling hand as the intruder turned towards the closet and began to take slow, deliberate steps in my direction. I held my breath and stared at the space where the door met the frame until the first crack of light appeared and then grew, as if being opened in an alternate reality where time moved at a quarter of its usual pace. I tightened my grip around the knife, which suddenly felt so small and insufficient as my only option for fighting off the looming threat. 2 seconds later, a head emerged from the other side of the door, and without any hesitation, I thrust the knife in that direction as hard as I possibly could. I almost cried out in rapturous glee when I made immediate contact with the soft flesh of my would-be assassin. The figure screamed out in fear and pain, and I managed to keep a hold of the knife in case I needed to strike again. I remained in my post in the closet and waited to see if they would reemerge. But I could tell by the sound of their movement that it wasn't likely. I heard them stumble back and then crash into the side table, dodging a lamp which then shattered against the wall. I could hear a thick gurgling and then a voice, weak and clearly struggling, as it called out my name. I could tell that it was a woman's voice, and it was not unlike mine. I stood, stunned for a moment as I strained to comprehend why the voice sounded so familiar. It was a voice I'd heard a million times on the other side of the phone as we caught up for hours. The voice that had been the first to tell me that our father had died when we were 18 years old. The voice that had encouraged me as we ran through the sprinkler in the yard of our childhood home. The voice that had whispered to me in the dark warmth of the womb that we'd shared inside of our mother for 9 months. Bella! I screamed with a ferocity that threatened to rip the universe in two. I dropped the knife and heaved myself out of the closet and into the dim light of the room where my twin sister lay dying against the bed I'd promised she could sleep in for a month or two when she returned from her most recent trip abroad. I rushed to her side and stared, helpless, as an enormous amount of blood poured from the hole that I had planted in the side of her graceful neck. I grabbed the jacket that I'd discarded from the hall and pressed the useless fabric against a wound in an attempt to slow the bleeding, but it absorbed so little. I might as well have used a brick to try to save my sister's life. I could hear the faint sirens growing louder in the distance. Their wailing crashed over me and carried my life away in the ebb of their awful song. As the life drained from my soulmate and other half, I imagined her frustration when she couldn't reach me to tell me she'd taken an earlier flight and had lost the spare key I'd given her. I imagined her calls and messages bouncing off the Do Not Disturb setting I'd switched on to silence my notifications before starting the live stream. I could clearly picture her being so desperate to fall into a soft bed after 17 hours of traveling that she'd made the choice to smash one of the small panes of glass in the back door so she could reach the interior lock with her delicate hand. We'd have a good laugh about her tenacious ways, and she'd promised to pay for the repair as we sipped our coffees and caught up on our parallel adventures the next morning. But instead, I was caught in the perfect storm of opportunistic trolls and furious indentured factory workers, and so fear and vanity had triumphed over humanity. I wound my arms around the middle of my sister's corpse. I allowed myself to slip away, falling further into the fantasy of our future together. The future we'd thought was promised to us. The future that was supposed to remain intact as we grew and succeeded and flourished and soared. The future I'd so thoughtlessly shared with millions of strange souls. The endless, faceless souls that I found out floating in the ether, hungry for me and everything I was and wasn't. Lonely souls, desperate to love me and guide me, to support me, to command me and demand me, to seek me out, then find me, and in the end, consume me. Hey guys, it's Bethy. Hope you're all staying saucy out there.
This story was written by Courtney and narrated by Lindsey Huebner. Special thanks to Beetlemuse for letting me use some of his amazing music for this episode. I will list him in the credits, and please check out his YouTube